Hello, welcome to another Stat 432 video. In this video, we are going to talk about week 5. This will be the introduction to week 5, but if we navigate to week 5 on the website, we see that week 5 is all about exam 1. One possibly confusing thing is that the exam actually takes place during week 6. That is the Monday of week 6. So it's as if during week 5, we are assigning the exam to sort of take the place of when a quiz would normally be due. We'll look at that in a second when I get to the assignment portion of this webpage. But let's talk through this real quick. Okay, so no reading this week because we're not introducing any new material. This is your week to go back, redo the previous quizzes, check the textbook, watch some videos to prepare yourself for exam 1. So we're not introducing anything new before exam 1. The only video this week is the one you're watching right now, so nothing really to talk about there. Assignments. So before the exam, you still have time to get some credit for quiz 3 or 4 if you haven't already. And then exam 1 will take place essentially the same day that the quiz would have been due this week. Note that unlike the quizzes, which are due at the end of the day, the exam does not take place near midnight. It's at 7 p.m. Champagne time. So do be aware of that. Okay, so obviously we'll hold office hours during the week. And so these 2 office hours here, myself and the TA on Thursday, will potentially be some of the last office hours before the exam because our usual office hours take place during the exam on the Monday of the next week. So do be aware that these are essentially the last office hours before the exam. Okay, so the rest of this page now details a lot of information about the exam. Most importantly, the date and time. So this will be administered through the CPTF Online. That is, the CPTF Online will essentially take care of scheduling, registering, and proctoring for the exam. And then when you actually take the exam, from your perspective, it will just be through Prairie Learn. So it should feel a lot like a quiz. Okay. So something you should do right away is click this link. And if you're not already, become associated with our course so that some important things will happen. So so as I'm recording this video, we're like a day or two beyond 2 weeks out. So I can't actually show the process of registering for the exam, although it's very straightforward. But if you get associated with the website right now or anytime in the future before the exam, you'll be given reminder emails to sign up for the exam if you are not already signed up for the exam. So there'll be sort of no way that you can miss out on registration for the exam itself. So if you're watching this video and you haven't gone to this website yet, pause the video right now, go do that, because that's the most important thing, because then you'll be sort of associated with the class and you'll get the helpful reminders to make sure you sign up for a time to take the exam. The other thing you should do while you're on that website is read the documentation for students. There's a lot of helpful information there. I should say that I've used the CPTF Online a few times now, or I should say a few semesters now. And from the instructor side, it's very easy to use. I haven't heard anything. Well, students don't like exams, so obviously I've heard some complaints. But it seems to me that using the CPTF Online is not particularly difficult. It's definitely not difficult if you're familiar with the policies and the rules and the procedures, which are all outlined in this information here that you should read through. Okay, again, Monday, March 1st. We should just confirm that. March 1st, yep. Okay, 7 p.m. Champagne time, but you'll see that again when you go to register for the exam, so that'll be very obvious. So the format of the exam is almost identical to that of a quiz in Prairie Learn. There's a few sort of key differences. Actually 4. There's one that I didn't list here that's implicit. you have an hour and 50 minutes to complete the exam. So I guess I should say the first difference is that instead of having a week or two for a quiz, you have an hour and 50 minutes for an exam. So that's the biggest difference, actually. But the more minor differences that you might not notice unless you're really paying attention is, first of all, instead of having unlimited attempts where we show you the answer after you submit, you have multiple attempts. So depending on the type of question, the first attempt is always worth full credit, and then there's diminishing credit as you reattempt the question. Now, when you reattempt a question in an exam, it'll always be the same question. So if you get it wrong, you won't have to try a new version. You'll keep the same one that you already had. So that's sort of a big difference. And then again, so when you submit, you don't see any hints or answers because you're going to keep the same variant. Checkbox questions, you get full credit the first attempt and then diminishing credit afterwards. For numeric questions, you actually get 2 attempts at full credit. So even if you submit the first one wrong, you can still get full credit on the second submission. Okay. In terms of and before the end of this video, I'm going to go through and demonstrate this. I'll show you what I mean by that. In terms of the content on the exam, anything that we did on quizzes 1 through 4 is fair game for the exam. And so those types of questions are also sort of predictive of the types of questions that you'll see on the exam. So again, the whole point of the quizzes has been to prepare you for this moment of taking the exam. Obviously you're going to be taking the exam in your own study space, so we have to define what it is you're allowed to use and not use. Because remember, the CPTF will be proctoring you, so you'll have a phone or some sort of device pointed at you and your screen, and a proctor will be watching you. So this is both for you and the proctor to understand what is allowed to be used. So obviously you need to be able to use R to complete these questions. So R Studio, and if you needed R Studio Cloud, those are all obviously available to you. And then certainly you can reference documentation within R while you are doing things in R. Okay, you can use the course website. I don't think that there's a ton of information on the website itself that is useful, except for perhaps the information about the exam, which you can reference during the exam. That's totally fine. You can use the book. So the book is totally fair game, as are the notes that are posted inside of the book, which are what are displayed in the videos. That's this. And then if you want, feel free to go watch the Stat 432 videos on either YouTube or Class Transcribe. But if you're doing that during the exam, you're going to have a bad time. So I would not advise that, but you're welcome to. If maybe when you're done, you want to get started on the next week's videos and start watching them while the exam, although I believe you can just check out and leave the exam. So probably don't plan on watching videos. Now, there are some things you cannot do during the exam. And I should note that in the registration system, some of this information will be summarized from the CPTF perspective. But like, for example, it'll say like you're allowed to use external websites, but this information is the more specific to our specific exam. So you won't have access to the previous quizzes during the exam mode in the CPTF. You'll just basically be locked out of those. You're not allowed to reference anything any like code or anything you generated while doing the previous quizzes. So you can't pull up files you already created. When doing the quiz, you need to open up a new R script or a new R Markdown document and type your code that way. And then to make it easier on the proctors, we're not allowing any loose paper, any handwritten notes. I do believe you're allowed scratch paper, but you're not allowed handwritten notes. For both educational reasons, and it makes it a lot easier for the proctors. Like I said, CPTF Online. If you have DRES accommodations, you need to contact Carlene as soon as possible. Once the CPTF knows you have accommodations, you will be able to schedule the exam with those accommodations directly through the CPTF. DRES students tell me that this is a very easy process, so reach out to Carlene as soon as you hear this information. Okay. Exams always lead to a conversation of academic integrity. So bottom line, don't cheat. I think if you've made it this far in your academic career, you know what is considered cheating and what is not. So what I'll say here is that because we're using the CPTF online, I will very strongly enforce any of their policies because I feel that it's important to maintain the integrity of the CPTF online. So if they catch you cheating, I will 100% back them unless there's some really weird reason why I would not. But I can't even imagine what that is. I will back them. So note that it's not just me that you have to get the cheating by. It would also be the CPTF online. And yeah, so just please don't cheat. It makes my job terrible. But this is your warning about that. Okay, so because you'll be using your own computer for the exam, you need to make sure it's set up correctly. Now, in theory, if you've been able to do quizzes 1 through 4, your machine's ready to go. But I would just caution that you need to make sure you're using an up-to-date version of R, something 4.0.0 or above. I think I'm on 4.0.2. I think 4.0.3 is out, but as long as you're past 4.0, you're fine. Anything before 3.6, and you'll run into terrible trouble. The other thing you need to be aware of is you've probably noticed along the way, some of the quiz questions require the use of packages, so you want to have those installed already. I listed these here. If you have these installed, you'll have more than what you potentially need for this first exam. This will probably actually cover the second exam as well. Right. Okay, so obviously, because it's a CPTF online exam, I'm not going to be there. I'll be sort of on call if a proctor needs to ask me something. Sort of in place of office hours, I'm going to set aside that time to, just be at my computer. And if someone from the CPTF messages me, I'll be ready to respond. But for the most part, you can't really communicate with me in a timely manner. So if something goes wrong, you need to know what to do. And I'm saying this out of abundance of caution, but in 2 semesters now using the CPTF online, and with myself being fairly practiced with the traditional CPTF and PrairieLearn, I don't think we had even any incident last semester. So this is just out of an abundance of caution. So first and foremost, if you encounter an error or some sort of issue that's not technology related, so not based on RStudio, that kind of thing, you need to tell a proctor about this immediately. And then they will potentially document it and let me know about it, and then I can respond appropriately. Now, if you experience a technology issue, and that is if it's a PrairieLearn issue or a CPTF issue, that goes to the proctors. Now, if you have an issue with R or RStudio, the proctors will not be able to help you. So my general piece of advice there is, if you think you're having an issue with R or RStudio, restart them. 9 times out of 10, that'll clear it up. If it still persists, one, consider that you're simply coding something wrong, and then two, I would suggest just moving on to a different question if it's like a question-based issue, because you don't want to waste a bunch of time. But if all else fails and you think that there's some sort of R or RStudio snag that is tripping you up, file an issue through PrairieLearn. Also, maybe let the proctor know at that point, but they'll at best they'll just be able to forward it to me. But so the other issue that could go wrong is you could feel that that PrairieLearn is not accepting the correct answer. Now, I'll tell you that I would say the last 2 semesters we've given these exams, can I say this with confidence? Yeah. No one has uncovered an issue with an exam. So every issue that was submitted to me that someone thought it was an issue with an exam, it was actually just the student misunderstood the question or was writing incorrect code. So my advice to you is, if you think PrairieLearn is not accepting the correct question, just use the correct answer to a question, move on to another question and come back to that only at the very end. And I should note that the exam is designed to take far less time than is given, so you'll have plenty of time to spend on it at the end of the exam. But if you're absolutely sure, like, okay, no, it's not me, it's Dave and Prairie Learn, they need to fix this, I need you to do two things. First, I need you to click this report an error in a question button and describe the error. So tell me why you think what you're doing is correct and what I did was wrong. And then two, go here, say attach text, and put your code there. But I know that's a lot of work and it's two separate things, but it's very helpful to me to keep them separated. So describe the issue here, attach the text here. Don't attach a file, attach text. So this is just to streamline the process from my perspective. So, and then the warning there, and just to make, and this is just to keep the course logistically stable, we can't allow you to dispute an issue with an exam after the fact if you have not flagged it during the exam. That wouldn't be fair to people for various reasons. But so so that's again, last semester we had no actual issues with the exam, but I want to make sure you're aware of this process for peace of mind in the rare instance you would run into it during the exam. Okay, some things about studying. So actually, first and foremost, read the CPTF documentation. If you haven't taken a CPTF exam before, like that is probably like the most nerve-wracking part of this. So the more you're familiar with the policies, the less nervous you'll be during the exam. So obviously, you should be familiar with the quizzes now, but you should start to get really good at the process of looking at the question, going to R, and then bringing your answer back to Prairie Learn. So if you're not good at window management, like switching between two windows with Alt-Tab, if you don't know the keyboard shortcuts for copy pasting, I would learn those and get using them because it'll speed things up. Not that I think time is going to be a problem on the exam, but every little bit helps. And then the last thing, both to make sure you understand what's going on and again to help with time, you should, when you're doing the quizzes to practice for the exam, because they're the best practice for the exam, you should not be copying and pasting code out of the book. You should be writing it from scratch. And if you get to a point where you feel like, oh, that is actually faster, that's when you know you're ready. But if you rely on having to copy paste code and like just find the right little bits to change, that's a recipe for potentially not doing very well. Okay, and now what's this last section here? These are the directions that you will see when you click the exam. But obviously, there's a lot of them. So I don't want you to waste your time reading them during the exam. So here they are right now. You can read them ahead of time. So when you get to the exam and you see this big list of directions at the beginning, you can go, I already know those, skip them, and start taking the exam. But do read through these. It kind of just recaps everything I just said, but this information will be given to you on the day of the exam, right when you start the exam. Now, related to all of that, if you navigate to Prairie Learn right now, it'll look something like this. Actually, hopefully it looks better than this because I have a 5% on quiz 1 and I have not done quizzes 2 through 4. So hopefully yours looks a little better than that. But you should now have this practice exam here. Now, actually, let's start it. Okay, so this is something you'll see when you take the real exam, which is this. You're certifying that you are who you are, and you're going to honor that you're not going to get outside assistance from anyone. Basically, you're not going to cheat. So I don't know how I could cheat on my own practice exam, but I'll certify that. Okay, so we come here, and this is a practice exam. So a few words of caution. This exam in no way is indicative of the length of the real exam. This is only meant to help you understand the differences between a quiz and an exam in Stat 432 on Prairie Learn. Also, this practice exam doesn't have a time limit on it, but the real one will, an hour and 50 minutes. But otherwise, I'm going to do a few things real quick to show you what this looks like. Okay, so here are some questions. So I just broke them down by checkbox questions and numeric questions because those are the two different types and they have slightly different behaviors. So first thing we can see is for the checkbox questions. So the first attempt is for full credit. the second 2 attempts are for half credit. And then with the numeric questions, first 2 attempts for full credit, next 2 attempts for 75% credit, last 2 attempts for half credit. After that, nothing. Okay, so let's try a checkbox question. Okay, which of the following are examples of supervisor-oriented tasks? Let's just pretend that I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay, so note that I get a little bit of feedback. I shouldn't know if that's the way it works, but that's how it's going to work. Okay, so so now I'm not going to get full credit, but I can still get half credit. So obviously these 2 shouldn't be there. This should, no, that's classification. That looks like regression, so let's do this. So I get half credit. So again, notice that I did not get the full answer given to me after I submitted, although the ones I checked did give me the answer. And then because you get some partial feedback and like it's multiple guess anyway, you only get half credit on your second attempt. Okay, let's go back to the assessment. Let's try a numeric question. Okay, so a numeric question looks a lot like something we've potentially seen before. So if I get it right this attempt, I get 4 points. So let's take this. Let's go to R. Let's do this. Let's see. I think it wanted root mean squared error and mean absolute error, right? So let's do. Oops. Okay, so I need to do this. Oh gosh. Square root. So root mean squared error. Mean. And then a square root. I could also do mean absolute value of x minus y. Okay, so now I come back here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get it wrong intentionally. I mean, who knows if I'm right anyway, but I'm gonna get it wrong intentionally. This for sure isn't right. Okay, so I got some partial credit, but I could continue to get more partial credit if I fix this answer here. But notice that it's not telling me whether this is, I mean, it's telling me it's wrong, but it's not showing me the correct answer. And then I don't get a new variant. It's the same variant. So I can just come back here, grab this correct answer, come back here. Well, that one would do it. This would do it. Okay, so I get 4 points. Actually, not sure that that's correct. How did I get 4 points? Actually, hold on. Oh, is there an easy one of these? Okay, let's do this real quick. So let's get it wrong. Oh, I was wondering why I still got 4 points. It's because I got it on the second attempt, which is still 100% credit. I confused myself. Okay, great. So that's kind of how that works. But if you didn't get it until the third attempt, you get some reduction in points, but still get partial credit. But basically, like any exam, you want to get it as correct as possible, as soon as possible, and submit that. Okay. So yeah, that was just to give you an example of how you can do this. And you can create new instances of this and completely start over to get a feel for it, although I don't know why you'd want to do that. But yeah, so sometime between now and the exam, you should do this once or twice just to get a feel for what the difference is in style between an exam and a quiz. But ultimately, you're mostly prepped. I just want to make sure you don't expect to see like answers and then a new variant. Instead, you're going to get no answers and the same variant and a time limit. and multiple instead of unlimited attempts. Okay, I think I've said that like 4 times now, so I'm gonna stop saying it. Okay, so I think that's everything. And again, so and again, not to be confused, but exam week 5 is prep for the exam, and then week 6 will introduce new material, and there'll be a quiz due the following week. But at the start of week 6, that's when exam 1 happens. That is here. Okay, yeah. So, oh, I should put something on the website here about the practice exam 1. Okay, I should add that here. That's a good note to myself. Okay, but I don't need to tell you that in the video. Okay, so yeah, wrapping up. So as always, if you made it to the end of the video, good job, and I will see you in the next one.